Hey everyone, welcome to Locked On Lakers for Monday. Brian Kamenetsky, Andy Kamenetsky. They say the NBA is a game of runs. Holy bleep, did the Lakers demonstrate that on Sunday? That's next.
You are Locked On Lakers, your daily Los Angeles Lakers podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Thanks to everybody for making Locked On Lakers your first listen of every day, Monday through Friday, sometimes on Saturday, as we saw over the weekend. Always free, never behind a paywall. And of course, Locked On Lakers on YouTube is where you go to participate in a fast-growing community of Lakers fans, over 10,000 subscribers strong. Always a vibrant conversation. The day after games, we saw it on Saturday after the Lakers had a remarkable win against the Grizzlies at the Crypt, and they turn around on Sunday, Andy, and oh my God, this win against the Portland Trailblazers on the road, 121-112. It seems like just a normal game. It wasn't. It was not normal. Nothing about this game was normal.
The Lakers were down in this game 71-46, 25-point deficit. The biggest they lost the second quarter 45-13, worst second quarter deficit in Lakers franchise history.
Worst point differential they've ever had.
The second biggest halftime, second biggest halftime comeback in franchise history. And what was crazy about it is the Lakers began this game in total control. They were up 14 pretty quickly, but then seemingly opted for a strategy of constantly throwing the ball away. Like they went from, because the last few games, win or lose, they had been remarkably great at taking care of the ball. And this game, they had 13 first half turnovers. I mean, they were so incredibly sloppy. And that sloppiness also extended to a lot of their defense and rotations around the arc. Portland went on this 3-point shooting just barrage. And all of a sudden you turn around and the Lakers are like buried, buried in a way that honestly, I did not. Well, I know we're going to talk about this. I did not expect this team to just lay down, because they haven't done that all year. But I did not think that they could make this type of game out of it from halftime on, much less win, because the spread was just that big.
25 points, a lot.
Yeah.
It's a lot. And especially how it happened. They were outscored 57-28 after that 18-4 run to start the game. I mean, that is an avalanche in the NBA. To go into the locker room having scored 13 points in the second quarter. I mean, that has been what I thought was kind of interesting. And we haven't even gotten to the AD stuff. Anthony, great news for Anthony Davis, which we will obviously talk about before the end of the show. We'll certainly get into it more for Tuesday's show as well, as the Lakers will take on the Clippers Tuesday night. I do want to let you know that this episode is brought to you by Prize Picks. First-time users can receive a 100% instant deposit match up to $100 with promo code Locked On. That's prizepicks.com, promo code Locked On. Darvin talked about after the game how at halftime they skipped the normal game film watching stuff and just kind of had a conversation. Like, what are we going to do here? What are we going to be? Because we got the evidence that we can beat up on this team. It was there in the 18-4 start. So what are we going to be? Like, we know what works. We know what doesn't work. What are we going to be? And like you say, we saw it on Friday against the Grizzlies. We saw it against the resolve of this team. Say what you want about some of the players or how well they've played or how well the roster was put together or whatever. The resolve of this team is really impressive. It just is. You hate the team, you like the team, Laker fan, not a Laker fan. You have to respect how hard this team plays.
Yeah, it's funny when Darvin talked about just not watching film and just raising that question of, he said, are we going to keep watching the same movie over and over where we go through these stretches of seeing us play great basketball, but then not being able to sustain it? And we go through these rough patches and then, often not being able to close it out, like wanting to present the best version of themselves. And it reminded me of this. This has been mentioned in one of Phil Jackson's books, and recently it was recounted in Jeff Pearlman's recent book talking about the Shaq Kobe Lakers. But in the 2000 Western Conference Finals, when the Lakers were down really big against the Blazers in Game 7 before eventually making that historic comeback, on the road to winning that first of the 3 Kobe Shaq three-peat championships, Rick Fox gave this impassioned speech during halftime where I'm reading the quotes from it. Here we go again. Everybody's got a blank look on his face. So what are we going to do about it? Are we going to let the referees dictate the terms of this game? Are we going to be passive and get blown out again? Are we going to stand up on our own feet? Are we going to provide support for each other? And the context of that was, before that year when Phil Jackson arrived, this core of Kobe and Shaq and Fox and Ori, Fisher, a couple other guys, they'd been together a while. They'd gone a few rounds in the playoffs, but they kept having these bad losses, either to San Antonio or to Utah. And it felt like after all this momentum that they had, they were about to go out like that again. And just that idea of watching the same movie over and over, or are you going to edit the movie? You're going to change it in post. You're going to make the story end the way you want it to. The way Darvin talked about it reminded me of that moment in 2000 with the Lakers. And obviously they came out in the second half and they made history.
Right. Because in the context of this team, the same movie, in the context of this group is 2 steps forward, 2 back, 1 forward, 1.5 back, 3 steps. Like this sort of, we're getting there, but we're not closing the deal. And to follow this remarkable win on Friday, where they steal a game against, one of the best teams, arguably the best team, certainly the hottest team. They'd won 11 games in a row in the conference. And to follow it up by blowing a massive lead that you build up at the beginning against a slumping Portland team. Portland's been terrible over the last, 3 weeks. That's the same movie.
Yeah.
It's not winning or losing. It's not that you're 3 games under. So, you lose. Portland plays well, you lose. It happens.
Portland it's always hard to play there. Always.
But once you get that lead, what are you going to be? And, the Lakers made some adjustments in the second half. LeBron in the second half was phenomenal. Patrick Beverley was a really big contributor. Dennis Schröder was a really big contributor. The Lakers, again,
Thomas Bryant was
massive. It was just massive all game long. But it starts with being willing to do it, to put in the effort and say, we're not going to, okay, it's done. Let's turn our attention to the Clippers on Tuesday. That's a huge game. Let's just, let's turn the page and we'll focus on that one. You have to be willing to put in the effort to come back from 25 with the understanding that it may not work. Like, you can play a great second half and not come back. Not only did the Lakers come back, they ran away with this game on Sunday.
The fights that matter the most are always the ones where you may not win. Because, like, if fighting was that easy, everybody would do it. If you're always going to win, or most of the time you're going to win, everybody would fight, or everybody would put up the fight, because why not? if you're going to end up coming out on top, the fights that matter the most are like the ones that you remember the most, like, in sports or in life, activism, whatever. Like, they're the ones where your odds aren't good, but you go out there and you do it anyway.
Yeah.
Like that's, I mean, ultimately, I don't want to sound like too.
Right. I mean, it's not Kennedy and the moon landing, but it's like you are in principle. It's the same. It's the same application of that. Like, you have to be willing to fail there. You have to be willing to put in the work, and you can't quit on something that has long odds of working. But they had the evidence there that they could pile up points pretty quickly against this team because they did it for the first, 6 minutes of the game or whatever it was. The energy part of this comeback that I think was critical to this comeback that I think is different than last year was
there's so much different than last
there's a lot,
year.
but like
what the hell isn't different than last year?
One of the many things that is different about this than last year in terms of, Lakers mounted plenty of fake comebacks last year. You need the energy of guys like Bryant, guys like Schröder, guys like Pat Bev, who are, in the case of Beverley particularly, who might be a little bit insane. That when you're trying to make a 25-point comeback can be quite helpful. So I want to talk about that next.
Locked on Lakers is brought to you by Prize Picks. Laker fans, if you have not signed up for Prize Picks, you are missing out on daily fantasy made easy. Prize Picks has the best NBA DFS prop game on the market. They offer more NBA props than any other DFS prop operator. They offer superstar players. They offer bench players. Just pick 2 to 5 players and predict whether they will notch more or less than the Prize Picks stats projections. And Prize Picks offers everything, projections on everything from NFL to women's college basketball, even disc golf. Just use the award-winning app on both the App Store and Google Play. Entries can be made in 60 seconds or less. Safe, fast withdrawals. Download the Prize Picks app or go to prizepicks.com. Sign up, play daily fantasy sports, and first-time users can receive a 100% instant deposit match up to $100 with the promo code Locked On. Don't forget the promo code Locked On again at that sign up for the instant match. If you are not playing Prize Picks, you don't know what you're missing.
So, like structurally, we were talking a little bit about this. They were talking about it in the post-game show and all that kind of stuff. Like defensively in the second half, the Lakers basically face guarded Damian Lillard, whether it was with Beverley, with Schröder, with anybody who was assigned him. In that second half, they made it much harder for Portland to get the ball. They put Lillard into action on the offensive side to help
to
LeBron.
Say LeBron was hunting Dame on switches, and to say that, quite frankly, Portland did not try to fight nearly enough to avoid some of these switches. Like I love Josh Hart, who was often LeBron's primary defender, but I'm like, dude, you should try a little harder to negotiate some of these screens, man.
It was just there's a reason Portland is now 4 games under 500. Yeah, now they're now 4 games under 500. LeBron went for 37, 11, and 4. Thomas Bryant 31, 14, and had an assist. And Dennis Schröder had 24, 6, and 8. Pat Beverley was a team high, and I want to make sure I get this right, plus 27 in 28 minutes. So there's a lot of individual performances there that you can point to, but I do think the energy that a guy like Pat Beverley puts out when you're trying to do things that are improbable, sometimes it doesn't work. Sometimes it can be distracting. It costs you points. You got a technical foul in the first half or a lane violation on Lillard.
That was not even a lane violation. That was Dame about to shoot a free throw and Beverley just walking up to him to have a conversation. Like,
yes,
a lane violation would imply that a free throw shot had gone up.
The lane violation is what Westbrook did on the second free throw from Clark in the Memphis game.
Yeah,
that wasn't called.
That
was a lane violation.
Yeah, and you know what? It didn't get called. And by the way, side note, damn right Russ did it, and damn right he should have gotten away with it after the way the Lakers have been getting screwed on all of these late calls. Like the last 2-minute report has basically just been an explanation of all the different ways the Lakers got bleeped over. So as far as I'm concerned, Russ should have been able to like tap dance in the lane during that second free
Hello,
throw.
my baby. Hello, my honey. Hello, my ragtime gal.
So continue. But
yes,
to make that point.
It was like in that
it
second
felt reckless by Patrick Beverley in that moment. It coincidentally was part of a period where Portland started burying the Lakers. And Dame is a guy that, as we saw during this game in the second half, he is somebody that you can make uncomfortable. He's somebody that you can defend effectively. He's somebody that you can give hard shots. You're not going to get into Dame Lillard's head. Like, that's not going to happen.
He's not that kind of flappable.
No. So, it's funny, actually. Beverley, after the game, was asked a lot about his talking, because we just mentioned he was talking a lot even while the Lakers were down double digits.
Mm-hmm.
And Beverley kept taking exception to this in ways that it felt like, in his mind, he was getting more credit for his talk than his play. Right. And he kept mentioning, no, I played well.
He was up. Dave McManaman at ESPN pointed out that he had the best plus minus on the team. And he's like, don't tell me I had the best plus minus. Say I played great defense on Dame.
Yeah. This came up a couple times, different questions he was asked. And, it's funny. We've talked about this before. There are elements of the Patrick Beverley experience that I think are very self-aware, performative branding exercises, because Patrick Beverley is very clearly thinking about his next life after basketball. He's got a podcast. The minute the Wolves were eliminated from the playoffs last year, he was on an ESPN panel. I'm pretty sure he went from the Target Center straight to ESPN.
He was still wearing his shorts.
Yeah, straight to ESPN. But he also talked about how, he's played at every level around the world, and adversity has fueled him. And there is some truth to that. I think Beverley has to be careful sometimes that he doesn't let the performative elements get away from him, where he doesn't seem like he's necessarily in total control of them or using them wisely. But this was a game where the second half, he was instrumental in slowing down Dame.
It's when you're trying to do things that are, I think, improbable, that kind of reckless energy, a little bit crazy, a little bit and then you combine that with what Schröder was doing and the energy that that's what Darvin loves about Schröder, is in part just the energy that he plays with, and then a guy like Thomas Bryant, who puts up 31 points without a play being called for him throughout the game. And a lot of that is following plays and, being in the signature play, I thought, for Bryant on a night where he had a lot of them was later in the game when Troy Brown goes up for a dunk. And I think it was either blocked or he missed it. It was blocked by Eubanks or whatever. The ball kind of flips up and Bryant is there to follow with a dunk. And that was on the heels of a similar play. I think it might have been
he had back-to-back put-back dunks.
And that kind of thing. And there were a couple in the first half. Those are energy plays that are a massive pickup for the team that is, trying to do what the Lakers are doing for chasing. And then as you start to build this momentum, to see that it just builds and builds and builds and builds. And if you're Portland, it becomes that much harder to fight it. So you're right. There are nights where the Pat Beverley thing doesn't play as well. In the first half, it wasn't playing that well, but it worked really well combined with better adjustments, smarter play, more effective play as a group, and, made some shots. Portland finally started missing a couple, seemed extraordinarily flummoxed in the second half when they couldn't run their offense through Dame, when they couldn't get in the ball easily. They had no clue what to do.
Yeah, a couple things. First of all, with Dennis, I can't help but think that his moment down the stretch against the Grizzlies, getting that steal on Desmond Bane, then the and one bucket that basically iced that comeback for the Lakers. And then we saw him, the way he played in this game. I can't help but think that moment kind of energized him into this game, because he had been in a pretty big slump leading into that Memphis game. And you had talked before, and I think you were correct, that there was some fatigue going on with him.
Fatigue, and I think he had a hip problem as well.
But I think he needed a moment like that. I mean, this might be pop psychology on my part, but I think he needed a moment like that against Memphis to help just summon some of that energy that you count on from him. And, during the game at Cam Brothers, I joking, but also acknowledging that Dennis and Bryant were playing really well, I sent out a tweet just like, as I've said all season, the Lakers will go as far as Thomas Bryant and Dennis Schröder can carry them. And obviously it's a bit tongue-in-cheek, but then I looked up their splits, and it's interesting. Thomas Bryant in wins is averaging 3.5 more points, shooting almost 9% more from the field, and that 9% becomes 67% from the field, and 2 more rebounds per game. Schröder in wins is averaging about 3 points more per game, like about 8% more overall from the field, and like 20% more from behind the arc.
Yeah.
So
I think the Schröder part of that is even more like, well, look, I don't want to discount what Thomas Bryant, with Anthony Davis out, what Thomas Bryant does is really important. And for a few games, Bryant had been kind of slumping, but it had been picked up a little bit by Wenyen Gabriel, who had been playing very well. Wenyen has been very quiet over the last couple games. And so it was really important, especially with, they've got Nurkic in the front line, and Eubanks is a very competent backup center and all that kind of stuff. Like
this game is a tough match for Wenyen Gabriel, period.
Right. They needed Thomas Bryant to do some stuff in this game, and he had a bounce back game in a massive way. But Dennis is Schröder, like we're best friends. Let's call him Dennis. Schröder is really important. And I do think there is, particularly with him, and particularly with Anthony Davis out, how Dennis Schröder goes, so go the Lakers thing, because he is one of their most reliable sources of points. You can't rely on Westbrook every game for that. And Russ had a nice third quarter, I thought, came back up, but it was terrible in the first half. Had a nice third quarter. The Lakers bounced back as a team, but didn't provide a lot of points. Like that, they need Schröder. They need Schröder scoring in the backcourt, and when he provides it, it makes a huge difference. Lakers got some really good, another good report on Anthony Davis. More signs that he could be returning. Certainly on the front end of that, maybe not deeper into February as there was the possible concern. So we'll talk about that next.
Locked On Lakers is brought to you by FanDuel. The NFL playoffs, they are here. They are awesome. And we are really stoked about our new sports betting partner for Locked On, because they are the #1 sports book in America, FanDuel. So if you're new to FanDuel, it's even better. You get to experience this now for the first time. It is awesome. They have so many great features that make betting on sports fun and easy. And again, if you are a new customer, they make it super fun, because if you join today, you can get started with $150 in free bets, guaranteed, when you place just a $5 bet. That's it, a $5 bet. Just sign up at FanDuel.com/lockedon. FanDuel has all your favorite bets, from the money line, the point spread, player props. Plus, you can even combine your bets for a chance at a bigger payout with the same game parlay, all on an app that's safe, secure, easy to use. So football fans, don't miss out. Place your first $5 bet to get $150 in free bets, win or lose, at FanDuel.com/lockedon. Make every moment more with FanDuel, the official sportsbook partner of the NFL.
Okay, so Andy, what do 2 wins, this stealing this game against Memphis on Friday, this gigantic comeback against Portland on Sunday, what does this do for the Lakers? Well, a lot. The Clippers have won 2 straight, so the Lakers keep pace with them. That means they go into Tuesday's game, the Lakers only 2 games behind the Clippers. So you win that game, that's essentially a 2-game swing when you're those head-to-head games. The Lakers keep pace with Minnesota, who won twice this weekend, and all this stuff. Like, they allow themselves to stay really tight as teams like the Pelicans are slumping. Teams like Dallas are slumping. The Clippers, even having won 2 in a row, still lost 6 of 10. The Suns have won 3 in a row, still have lost 6 of 10. They are 11 games. They're 11 games behind Denver, but they're only 2 games behind the Clippers for the 6th spot. They're 2.5 games behind Dallas for the 5 spot. Heck, Andy, the way they're making me optimistic, I'm willing to even point out that they're only 4 games behind New Orleans for that 4 spot, and that is a team that they will see on the road trip. And so, 4 games with 8 teams to jump over. That's a lot, but these head-to-head matchups are still there. So these, if you don't win these games, yeah, you're still close to that 10 spot. You're still in it. You don't give up, but it's, those spreads make a difference. Being within 2 games of the 6th spot as opposed to 3 or 4 makes a huge difference in what's possible down the stretch of these last 35 or whatever it is, 36 games.
2 things. First of all, just before we seg out of this game and into the big picture in AD, just want to make sure that we properly note how well LeBron played in this game, because he was he was freaking fantastic. And in particular, LeBron was instrumental in getting their transition going, getting them back into the habit of just successfully attacking the rim, really capitalizing on defensive stops and turning that defense into points. And like we talked about before, he was merciless seeking out those matchups with Dame.
I almost reposted that poll that we put up on Friday about how much money you would have to be offered to take a charge from LeBron, because he was so dominant going through the paint. I will point out that the 2 highest vote getters, your options were $100, $1,000, $10,000 or $100,000. About 70% of the combined vote in that poll was the starting price was $10,000 or 100. I was absolutely in the $100,000 category. I don't know what you people who are doing it for 100 are thinking, but yeah, you're right. He was in the paint the entire time and forcing the Blazers to make life and business decisions about charges.
The other thing, though, to your point about just the teams that they're chasing and what it means to win games like these, keep themselves in that bunched up state. I was looking over the Western Conference standings today, and I noticed with the point differentials from seeds 5, which is currently Dallas, through 13, now the Blazers, nobody has a point differential below minus 0.9. That's the Lakers. And other than the Thunder, nobody has a differential above 1.0 on the positive side. They're 1.1. So everybody from seeds 13 through 5 is basically separated in a point differential by 1.
Yeah, there's not. I mean,
that's
look,
crazy.
It is. The Western Conference is behaving in ways that are very fortunate for the Lakers this year. There's no question about it. But the flip side of that is, okay, you take advantage of it. You can look at different things. The Clippers haven't had a lot of their players all year. Okay, but neither are the Lakers.
I was going to say, as opposed to.
Right. No, I'm saying it's like, every team, New Orleans is playing without Zion and Brandon Ingram. And, one would assume when those guys are back, they're going to be significantly better. But, Dallas has struggled this year, especially if Luka isn't superhuman. The Suns, okay, when Devin Booker gets back, you expect that to improve a little bit. They've already won 3 in a row. Maybe they're turning it around. Minnesota, maybe they figure it out. They've won 7 of 10, but Utah, it's like everybody's got something in this, and nobody in this group is distinguishing themselves in really important ways. It's Denver, it's the Grizzlies. Sacramento is sort of settled into like, okay, they're probably the 3rd best team in the conference right now. And then it's just a big giant jumble after that. And there's no reason, honestly, the Lakers can't make noise and move up. A 10-game stretch where you win 6 or 7 games can probably jump over 2 or 3 teams or 14, maybe even 4.
It's a weird year. Like, we have talked, we'll continue to talk up until the deadline, like the decision the front office is looking to make right now, and, trying to figure out what they want to do with this team, how much they're willing to invest before the deadline, and, how much it's about this team versus next, all that stuff we've talked about before. I'm sure we'll talk about again. It's a weird year in the sense that how much you actually believe in your team, whether you're the Lakers or one of these teams in the West, may not even, it's a weird year where how much you believe in them may not necessarily be copacetic with how much you think they could actually win a championship. Like, you may feel like, in the grand scheme of championship teams, we might be on the low end of the spectrum, but this particular year, it could be enough.
Well,
it's
because if
year for
there aren't,
evaluating stuff.
when there are only one or two really dominant teams, there are more, the better teams are in the Eastern Conference. I think there's more depth in the Eastern Conference right now, especially when Durant comes back and some things that are going to happen in the East. Boston, Philadelphia, Milwaukee, Brooklyn, Cleveland, I think are all better when everybody's healthy. Cleveland's 29-19. That's a pretty good team. The West is a mess. And outside of Denver and the Grizzlies, there isn't a team that you look at and say that's clearly very good. And okay, so what if Nikola Jokic pulls a hamstring in game 74? I'm not rooting for it because I don't root for injuries, and Jokic is a great player. But this sort of thing happens, and and it's just the Grizzlies, or it's just it's one team, one or two. There's not a team right now that I look at in a 7-game series right now. To ask me again in 25 games right now, where I say 7-game series, Lakers can't beat that team. I might not pick the Lakers, but that in that group of 4 through 13, I don't look at any of those teams and say the Lakers could beat Dallas in a 7-game series. I would probably pick the Mavericks based on results this season, but there's no reason the Lakers couldn't win that.
The funniest thing about that is Denver has been, I don't know if they've been wire to wire the best team.
No, they got off to a bad start, but then
I don't think anybody other than maybe Memphis has been better this year more consistently than Denver. The Lakers have played Denver really well.
They have.
They've beaten Denver before. That's what's actually funny about it.
They beat Denver with funk for all intents and purposes without Anthony Davis.
Yeah. And so, you talk about how close these teams are, the ones bunched up between 5 and 13, and then whoever you think might be the best teams in the West. The Lakers just beat the Grizzlies, and they have beaten Denver.
Right. Denver, by the way, was 10-7. And they have gone 23-7 since then. So they've been outstanding since a reasonably slow start.
They've been the best team in the West.
They have, and they're really good. And I would pick them. I've been big on Denver for a few years, and so and now we'll talk. We'll get way deeper into this for Tuesday's show. But Anthony Davis had the report from Mike Trudell and others. AD played with the, what do they call it, the Stay Ready group, had a full contact scrimmage with those guys. That's the group of players who haven't been playing a lot. They need the floor time. They're not beaten up and injured, plus some assistant coaches and all that kind of stuff. And Darvin Ham said he looked great in that. So now the Lakers, who will not practice on Monday, we'll see how AD heals, make sure he's not feeling any setbacks. So probably have him go through another workout like that 1 or 2 more times maybe. But the fact that they are talking so openly about how well he is doing and letting us in on details about what he is doing tells me that they are really confident that he's going to be back sooner rather than later, like the reports were at the end of the week. As early as the end of this week, which would have him back in time for that long road trip.
Yeah, they don't practice on Monday and today, and they have back-to-backs on Tuesday and Wednesday. So the next opportunity would be Saturday in Boston. If he doesn't end up ready for that game, you're looking at Monday in Brooklyn, and then Tuesday against the Knicks in New York, and then from there you get into February.
Right.
So,
but if you'd have told me, Andy, that he would have a chance to play before the end of February, if you'd have told me that 2 weeks ago, I'd have been sold.
The end of January.
I'm sorry, the end of January before February. I'm not totally sure I would have believed you.
No,
I would have. I would have had that into February. So the fact that it's even legitimately possible, it seems like now that it could be before then, is great news. So more on that for Tuesday's show. We'll obviously get into more depth about what's going to be going on Tuesday night with the Clippers, what that will mean in the standings, how the Lakers can attack that one, who will be available, because that is always a big deal in terms of figuring out who's going to win. But man alive, great weekend for the Lakers. What a great weekend for the purple and gold. Locked On Lakers on YouTube is where you can go to see the show and talk to happy Laker fans for right now, which is it's a nice change of pace, to be perfectly honest with everybody. We love the passion, but it's fun to feel good about your team.
Yes, it is.
And so, yeah, thanks for the support there, and we will see everybody on Tuesday.